Located just south of Starr County is a 170-acre island that Texas law enforcement calls the most dangerous spot in the Rio Grande. It's a place where violence has become the norm, and where those living nearby have been forced to get used to a life in which they have two choices: lead or silver, a bullet or a bribe. Welcome to Fronton Island, though a more accurate name would be Cartel Island. This is the story of how the Mexican cartels took over a U.S. island, turned it into a drug and human trafficking hotspot, and the raid by U.S. law enforcement to finally take it back. So what is Fronton Island anyway? Located in the middle of the Rio Grande, which forms the natural border between Texas and Mexico, between 1852 and 1926, the flow of water slowly cut away at the land to the river's north. That cutting led to the erosion of the land and the creation of a new channel. It also led to the creation of the island in question, dubbed Fronton Island because of its proximity to the Texas village of Fronton. By 1959, the island was a fully formed entity that was acknowledged as Mexican territory, but was placed under the joint control of Mexico and the U.S. arm of the International Boundary and Water Commission, or IBWC. And it's this joint control that would end up paving the way for cartel operations. Squabbles between the IBWC and Mexico started almost immediately, resulting in the IBWC choosing to delineate the international border to America's south, citing the terms of the 1970s Boundary Treaty. In other words, the IBWC attempted to place the island entirely under American jurisdiction, creating a legal gray area. Neither Mexico nor the U.S. would offer up troops or law enforcement officials to patrol the island, and so Fronton Island became a no man's land, though it wouldn't remain one for long. But at least in the early days of this territorial dispute, life on the island was fairly peaceful. The 1980s saw Mexican ranchers using the island to feed their cattle, aided by its lush vegetation and thick bamboo cover. Again, territorial disputes arose. Angered by Mexican ranchers using the island, the Cisneros Ranch of Texas staked its own claim. Again, the island became no man's land, with ranchers from neither side truly using it. And it's around this time that the first criminal activity happened on Fronton Island. On June 10, 1983, a group of 7 armed fugitives escaped from Mexico's Miguel Alemán Municipal Jail. Now serving as an immigration detention center, the jail has a small capacity of just 6 people, and it lies not far from the banks of the Rio Grande. It was larger in the 1980s, though it generally served the same purpose. Still, it wasn't so large that a group of prisoners would have to break through multiple layers of defense. The fugitives would take advantage of this small stature during their escape. Having been sent to work in the prison, the escapees hatched a plan: use their tools to attack a guard before stealing his weapon to aid them in making their escape. Suitably armed, they then escaped from the prison via a gate that had been left open for a lumber delivery and then fled toward Fronton Island, making use of its dense bamboo-laden foliage to hide from the authorities. A potential international crisis was brewing. The escape was worrisome because 3 of the 7 men were being held in connection with the murder of 2 Mexican federal police officials. They were already established as dangerous. Now they were armed. Authorities from Mexico and the U.S. cooperated to arrest the fugitives, though to little avail. Helicopter patrols proved fruitless thanks to Fronton Island's wild and unkempt foliage. The attempted escape was almost successful. Unfortunately for the fugitives, they would eventually have to leave the island. This wouldn't have been a problem if Fronton Island was under the control of the cartels, who would have been able to smuggle them away, but that wasn't the case in 1983. The fugitives were on their own. 3 attempted to leave the island on June 12, 1983, just 2 days after their escape. All were captured. As for the other 4, there is little information about what happened to them and whether or not they were ever captured again. A dangerous precedent had been set, though. The territorial disputes surrounding Fronton Island had resulted in it being poorly guarded and practically unmanned. The perfect place for cartel members to transport drugs, guns, and even people. Enter the Gulf Cartel and the Cartel del Noreste, or CDN, 2 rival gangs who both wish to use Fronton Island as a safe haven and a lookout point. Both are dangerous, murderous gangs that wouldn't blink at the idea of putting a bullet in your head. The Gulf Cartel traces its roots to 1984, which is when Juan Garcia Abrejo took control of what was at the time a relatively small-scale marijuana and heroin smuggling business from his uncle. By the time Garcia was arrested and deported to the United States in 1996, he'd built a multi-billion-dollar drug empire, with think tank Insight Crime stating that he typically took 50% of the profits from every deal the cartel made. The cartel would only get more dangerous from there. Following Garcia Abrejo's arrest, Ociel Cardenas Guillen took control of the Gulf Cartel. Militarization of the group would follow, with Cardenas recruiting at least 31 former Mexican Special Forces soldiers to serve as enforcers for their gang, as well as train other members. Each of the 31 was tempted by far higher wages than they'd ever seen before, with Guillen offering them 3 times the amount that they'd be earning from the Mexican army. A far more brutal regime was now in place, one that would continue beyond Guillen's 2003 arrest and into the Gulf Cartel's use of Fronton Island. CDN is a newer cartel, though no less dangerous. The group started its life within the Los Zetas cartel, another of Mexico's most dangerous gangs, though it splintered away in 2015 after the capture of the Los Zetas leader, Omar Trevino Morales. That capture led to conflict within Los Zetas, especially when Trevino's brother, Juan Francisco Trevino Morales, tried to ascend to the head of the cartel. Backlash followed. Many Los Zetas members believed the departed Trevino had snitched on other cartel members, and Los Zetas divided into the Zetas Vieja Escuela and CDN factions. CDN took a similarly militant approach to the Gulf Cartel. For instance, the cartel carried out 38 separate armed attacks on Mexican military bases between its 2015 formation and 2022. In addition to an attack on the United States consulate, the message was clear: get in our way and we will fight. It was a message that the group took to Fronton Island and would embody as it battled with the Gulf Cartel for control over the island. Those battles would result in numerous terrifying incidents from 2006 onward. Both identified Fronton Island as prime real estate due to the territorial disputes between the US and Mexico. They saw that neither would send law enforcement or military troops to the island. Each was wary of raising tensions that were already simmering, creating an opening for criminal activity. As Mike Salinas, a Border Patrol agent who spent 30 years in the immediate region, put it, the optics of that whole thing might open up a big old Pandora's box of holy moly. That ambiguity created the perfect drug trafficking corridor. Cartel scouts from both sides could easily monitor the only paved road leading to the island for signs of American police officers patrolling the other side of the border. Incidents would soon follow as the cartels grew even more confident of their immunity. In 2016, cartel gunmen stationed on the island opened fire at DPS officers who were surveilling them from the shore. A gunfight broke out, resulting in one of the DPS soldiers being wounded. Another incident took place in 2019. This time it was a Border Patrol boat sailing through the Rio Grande that became the target of the cartel's ire. As the boat approached Fronton Island, cartel gunmen sprang into action, riddling the vessel with over 50 rounds as it attempted to get away. Amazingly, the attack not only failed to sink the boat, but also failed to harm any of the Border Patrol officers on board. Still, the message was clear: stay away, we control this island. The problem was that this control was split between two cartels, both engaged in human trafficking as well as drug and gun running. That's according to Jason Jones, a former DPS Intelligence Division officer, who said he's heard several stories of the cartel using this island to sneak people into the U.S. The Center for Immigration Studies, or CIS, expands on Jones's claims, noting reports of 8 parents who brought single children over the border via Fronton Island. Each paid $9,000 to the cartel to facilitate their moves from Honduras to the U.S., but the price could vary. The CIS notes that 2 of the parents to whom it spoke said their journeys had cost them $15,000 each. The residents of the Texan village of Fronton didn't have it much better. While the 2 cartels raked in the cash from their drug and human smuggling activities, they also turned their sights toward the 180 residents of the riverfront village that lent their island its name. The village, which is home to primarily ranchers and farmers, was under constant observation. The cartels kept the residents in line with their lead or silver offers, with one 80-year-old resident telling the CIS that he hadn't visited his neighbor's riverfront property in over 30 years, despite it being just 200 yards away, due to his fear. Something had to change. The rise of Governor Abbott signaled a new day for Fronton Island. In 2023, he tasked Texas's state and military forces to not only take Fronton Island by force, but to hold it against the cartel. That task was finally enabled in September 2023 when Buckingham ruled that Texas should control Fronton Island. A raid was being planned, one that would see the island finally fall out of the hands of the cartels that had so brutally controlled it for more than a decade. Dawn broke on October 2, 2023. Abbott stood in front of the assembled forces to deliver words of encouragement. Most were equipped with M4 rifles, shuffling from side to side as Abbott told them that he had prepared medical evacuation plans and that there was extra blood for transfusions available, in case we do get engaged and someone is shot or something. Not exactly a great start to the speech. Still, Abbott also had some words of wisdom for the troops preparing to assault the island. He He told them to watch out for the graffiti-covered structures, many of which were already pockmarked with bullets from cartel activity, because they would give any cartel gunman the height advantage. Those structures were often used by cartel snipers for observation and firing upon Border Patrol personnel, with many having been spray-painted with cartel insignias to show that they belonged to the gangs. The Texas Rangers were also warned about bombs. An improvised explosive had been discovered on Fronton Island just a month before the raid, lying alongside a stash of semi-automatic rifles and ammo. The Rangers were told to be on the lookout for similar stashes, as well as backpacks, piles of clothing, or anything else that seemed suspicious or off on the island. They were told not to touch anything they find, as these types of items are often used by the cartel to lure invaders into booby traps. If they see anything, the Rangers were told, they must mark it, and their commanders will send in one of 3 bomb squads that are on call and ready to follow their leader. The Rangers' captain piped up. He reminded the troops that Fronton Island was subject to a cartel turf war. Bullets may start flying, but it's just as likely that it'll be the Gulf Cartel and CDN fighting amongst themselves, as they'll be firing on the Rangers. When these guys engage, the captain says, we have a lot of bullets fly our way. It's not directed fire, so just be aware of that. He told the Rangers to seek cover and wait for the firing to stop if that happens. But what if it is directed fire? The captain explained that it's a possibility and that the Rangers need to be extra careful in that situation. After all, they're launching the assault alongside the Mexican Federal Police. The Rangers must make every shot count and crucially must avoid hitting any Mexican police officers with their fire. After all, Fronton Island is already subject to territorial tension. A full-blown international incident could occur if the Rangers accidentally fire on anybody who isn't a cartel member. With all of that having been said, the Ranger captain delivered a final piece of advice. Watch out for the killer bees on the island. Fully briefed, the Rangers are prepared to start their assault. Many are restless, talking among themselves or shifting side to side as they await the order to move out. Others may be pondering the reason why they're actually taking this island at all. It's not just that Fronton Island has become a haven of cartel activity, it's also become a key part of Governor Abbott's policy, now that he's in power in Texas. After all, it represents an easy route to America's southern border, which Abbott claims has seen 5 million undocumented immigrants enter the U.S. since President Joe Biden came to power in 2021. Curbing that immigration is the reason that Abbott created Operation Lone Star. The assault will be that operation's crowning achievement if the Texas Rangers manage to pull it off. Still, they'll face challenges. Beyond the incidents already mentioned, the previous few months had seen the island become a hotbed of activity. Earlier in 2023, 5 CDN members were arrested near the island, all equipped with tactical gear and armed with weapons. In August, 1 month before the raid, cameras mounted on the island's trails had captured grainy images of a trio of men believed to be cartel members crossing into Fronton from Mexico via the island. Again, each was wearing body armor and was equipped with a rifle. The Rangers can't afford to take any chances. Still, they have some experience in these island takeovers. In April 2023, DPS agents conducted a similar raid on islands near the city of Eagle Pass. Those islands, which totaled just 45 acres in area, had also been used by cartel members to transport drugs and people. Just like Fronton Island, they were unkempt and covered in vegetation. Only this time, it was carrizo cane plants, which could easily grow as tall as a person, and according to Don Buckingham, grew so thick that it would be impossible to spot a person hiding within them. Even somebody standing 5 feet away would be invisible to infrared cameras, making identification via the naked eye impossible. The Eagle Pass raids had been unqualified successes. Over the course of 2 days following the raids, Border Patrol agents had apprehended 10,000 migrants, as well as seized at least 52 pounds of fentanyl. Buckingham later claimed that it was enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in the United States, with the haul being accompanied by 38 pounds of ecstasy, 11 pounds of cocaine, and another 11 pounds of methamphetamine. Add 20 firearms, 5 stolen vehicles, and $48,000, and you have the results of a very successful raid. The Texas Rangers are hoping to score a similar result on Fronton Island. With the briefing over, several dozen armed men board a convoy of all-terrain vehicles that set off toward Fronton Island. The men don't embark immediately. Instead, they send out drones, which they use to scan the island's main pathways, as well as the structures they know could house snipers. None are found. The task will be made even more challenging by rare overnight rainfall, which has resulted in the pathways becoming deep and muddy, not ideal for a firefight. The drones return to their vehicles. Already sweating profusely due to the humidity, the Texas Rangers finally head out on foot. They're wearing heavy body armor, as they begin their patrols, with these vanguards being responsible for securing the island for the later arrival of the Texas National Guard engineers. Those engineers will denude the island, cutting away at vegetation and destroying the makeshift structures the cartel has been using. They'll also set up concertina wire before working alongside the Rangers to prevent the island from ever falling into cartel hands again. That will all come in the future. The raid needs to happen first. The Rangers' primary goal is to cut off entry to the island from the south bank of the Rio Grande. Herein lay a potential problem. The Rangers knew that the cartel members had likely already been tipped off to their invasion. They could be running into a firefight as they tried to take the south bank. That isn't what happened. The cartels had indeed been tipped off about the raid, but when they heard about the size and the strength of the force being sent to Fronton Island, they chose to run instead of fight. As the wary Rangers made their way to the south bank target, they encountered nobody. No snipers waiting for them in structures, no explosive devices or cartel members with small arms to fight on the ground. Just an empty island, evacuated by the cartel members who had been using it as a safe haven for years. The raid was a success. The Rangers moved from point to point after securing the south bank access, ensuring that no trace of the cartel remained on the island. Satisfied, they gave the all-clear for the Texas National Guard engineers to follow. Those engineers brought with them more than 1.5 miles of razor wire, which they used to start building fortifications. Foliage was also chopped down, with the goal being to ensure that no cartel members or undocumented immigrants would ever be able to use Fronton Island's dense bamboo to hide from authorities again. This secondary aspect of the taking of Fronton Island would later be called Operation Flat Top. Texas controlled Fronton Island, and not a single drop of blood was shed. Victory was declared on October 3, 2023, marked by the Texas Rangers posing for a photograph with the Texas state flag. The next 2 months or so were taken up by Operation Flat Top, which was completed on November 27, 2023. Fronton Island was finally free of its dense vegetation, as well as being fortified to such the extent that border crossings using the island as an intermediary would become more dangerous than they were worth. The Texas General Land Office triumphantly claimed that there has been a 100% decrease in cartel activity since the completion of the operation. Right now, it's under Texas control to the point where it's being regularly patrolled by members of the Texas Rangers and the Texas National Guard. However, the territorial disputes that turned it into a no-man's land that enabled cartel usage haven't been resolved. Texas claims ownership, Mexico disputes. And if neither country is careful, we could see another situation in which the island again becomes a safe haven for cartels in the decades to come, as diplomatic infighting undoes the work accomplished since the raid. Now check out 50 insane facts about El Chapo you didn't know, or watch this instead.